Now it's time for Call the Floor with Elliott Schechter.
Elliott Schechter is the poker room manager for Rivers Casino in Schenectady, New York. He joins us each week to say how he would rule on situations that come up in your games, and he's with us again this week. Elliott, how's it going?
Going pretty well, Joe.
Well, hey, we got our, as far as I know anyway, our very first submission from France, which is cool.
Very nice.
Milo Hood sent this in, and he says that he plays in Casino Cavalier, which I'm sure I butchered. But he says, I bet you have never had a situation like this, which I will just say this, Milo. As long as Elliott has been around, I would never say, I bet you've never seen this one, because I'm sure you've seen a lot. But in this situation, they are playing 5-5 euro. Small and big blinds have posted. It folds to seat 7, who goes all in for 120 euro. And it's back around to the small blind, who then puts out 50 euro, not seeing the all in. The big blind let him know about the raise, and the small blind says he's not calling and throws his cards away. They can be retrieved if so desired, I guess. But the big blind, seeing this action, says, I'll give you a spin, and puts his whole stack of around 300 euro in the middle, turns over his hand, showing ace-8. Seat 7 shows queen-6, and only at this point does the dealer call the floor. So, Milo's question is, what should the ruling be for the guy in the small blind? He didn't say call or raise. He only put out 50 euro and said fold when he was made aware of the previous all-in before him. He says that the room I play in is a small room and everyone knows everyone, so the players all agreed to give him his 50 euro back, which was nice of them all. But he says, I'm going to be going to the States to play in a few months, and I expect that the rules will be much more strict. I'm just looking to see what to expect.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for the submission. We appreciate it. Apparently we've got a little further reach than we thought. Well, this is not a particularly small game, although it may be a game with a fairly wide range of buy-ins, considering how small the all-ins were relative to the blinds. This is going to be a judgment call in most casinos. It really is. But more often than not, that 50 euro is staying in the pot. They were acting in turn, and they were not acting on the opening bet of the round. There was an intervening bet, and they were undercalling. It's easy to assume that this was intended to be a raise. Again, we don't know. It is unique in the fact that the third player, the big blind, reminded the guy who undercalled about, oh, yeah, no, that's actually a raise back there in front of you, but here I'm going to raise and isolate. That was very friendly of him. And that's the unique part. But yeah, in most cases, that 50 euro is going to stay in the pot. It was that player's turn to act. It was more than the opening bet. It'd be one thing if they had put merely 5 euro in, and there was a raise that they had not known about. In a lot of cases, you'll still be made to leave the 5 euro. It'll be less painful, obviously. But your intention was to call a bet that had been made. There was no 50 euro bet on the layout anywhere on the table. The intention was different, and we don't try to divine every intention that we see, but a lot of times the bet speaks for itself, and that 50 euros was meant to be wagered. It was that person's turn. Everybody's still obligated to pay attention or at least ask what's happening. I'm assuming that whoever bet the 120 euro all in, the player in seat 7. Did so in a way that was noticed by more than one person at the table. Obviously, the big blind noticed. The dealer probably noticed and likely announced it, although it doesn't say if the dealer did or not. So maybe the dealer didn't, which, again, if you don't know what's going on, feel free to ask. Apparently this person felt they knew what was going on and didn't know there was a raise and bet their 50 euro accordingly. In almost every case in a situation similar to this, the 50 euro is going to be made to stay in the pot. Again, it's a judgment call, and in some cases they'll let you take it back. And some rooms I've seen it, and again, in a situation like this, it was obviously no harm, no foul. The players didn't object. They obviously knew each other. And again, it's very situational. That's why judgment calls exist. So make a judgment over the players. If it's a guy who's never been a problem and never shoots angles, has a good reputation, who generally pays attention, that player is going to get the benefit of the doubt. We're all human. We're allowed to act accordingly. If it's a player who's constantly having the floor called on them, who's constantly shooting angles, who's constantly making situations worse or creating situations, that player is almost never going to get a benefit of the doubt. And why should they? So again, these situations will be treated as judgment calls uniformly, and we're going to try to keep it basic. Again, you put 50 euro in a pot, in which case the opening bet was 5 euro. Your intention was to bet 50 euro when it was your turn, and it was your turn when you bet it. We're going to keep things simple and define accordingly. So, yeah, be prepared for a little more strict play when you head over to the States. I'm assuming you're coming over for the World Series, if that's a few months. The timing works out perfectly. And welcome. Right. Hope you have a great time and a great run. But, yeah, they got a pretty decent floor staff running the World Series. They put together a pretty good crew there. I know a bunch of those guys. I haven't been around the game for a while. It's a smaller community. We all get to know each other. For the most part, they know what they're doing. And they're not putting their greenest people in the sections with the bigger cash games. And anything above 2.5 is already in the mid-levels, if not the upper mid-levels. They're going to make sure that whoever's running that section knows what they're doing and is confident about it. Be prepared for something like this. They're not going to have mercy on the guy not paying attention, and they're not going to have mercy on the guy putting money in the pot with no intention of actually, letting it stay in the pot. So, yeah. This is a good question to ask. I appreciate you sending it in.
Yeah, I think my only, I don't know if I would say concern, but the weird part to me is that all of that happened before the dealer called the floor. Which
it reads like a long time, but that could have been a matter of seconds. Apparently the guy in the big blind was paying attention. Well, when it was his turn to act, he acted. He let the other guy know what was going on. This could have all happened in fairly rapid fire. You are completely correct to bring up the dealers in action, though, regarding as soon as the guy puts in an amount that's not the correct amount, sir, it's this much. And obviously we don't have any of those details, so it's easy to assume that it didn't happen. That doesn't mean it didn't. It's likely that it didn't. But yeah, where was the dealer? Great question, and I'd like to know too. And again, I mean, small casinos, small poker rooms have trouble getting really good dealers.
True.
They're not common and are in high demand. So, yeah, you certainly want dealers to be active and not passive. You can't deal on autopilot. You can't play on autopilot. Dealers got to be an active participant at the table. They're not just there to pitch the cards out and drop the rake. They've actually got to conduct the game in a fair manner. And yeah, speaking up when something irregular happens, like an undercall, is absolutely part of their job.
Right. Yeah. I think that, aside from that, when you're playing with a group that you know pretty well, then you can get away with a little bit more. Like you said, when you come here and you're playing with, especially if it's at the World Series, then they're going to have to follow things a little more stringent for sure. And so,
The bigger the game, the less mercy they'll have. Especially, I guess they call it the King's Room over at the World Series. You're playing any of those games, my God, if you're not paying attention, they're not going to go too easy on you. They want the games to move fast, and they want the games to be fair. Somebody putting money in the pot, that money's almost never coming out.
But I hope that when you come, World Series or not, I hope that it is a great time. You have a lot of fun and go back with a little bit of money. That would be ideal.
A lot of money.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sending that in. I know I mentioned it, but I love getting responses from all over the place, U.S. and beyond. So that's fun. And Elliott, I appreciate you breaking this down again. And
You're very welcome. Glad to do it.
We'll talk next week.
Looking forward to it.